February 26, 2026. Buddha Dhamma, chapter 17.8. General principles on Samma Jiva, right livelihood. Page 1619 to page 1630. As mentioned earlier, Samma Jiva is an aspect of Sila, moral conduct or morality, that often gets overlooked, although only a brief summary will be presented here in the teaching of Samma Jiva, right livelihood, are very meaningful and they deserve thorough investigation. Following are some general principles on this subject. Buddhism focuses on the basic requirements of human beings here have for existence. The example is the main purpose of earning a livelihood is to ensure that every individual in society has an adequate amount of the four requisites to sustain life. In the Buddhist teachings, give precedence to human beings. They do not emphasize an abundance of material wealth, which would be to give precedence to material possessions. This principle of sufficiency is included in the Buddhist teachings on the proper governance. One of the responsibility of a king is to distribute wealth to the poor, to ensure that there is no impoverished, destitute people in the land. The success of a ruler's work or of the government's economic policy should thus be measured not by full treasury or abundance of wealth, but rather by the absence of poverty in society. In the case that these basic requirements have been met, the Tipitaka, the scriptures, do not pass judgment on how much wealth a person possesses or whether there is an equal distribution of wealth in society. Because these matters are connected to other factors. The example is, it is not a goal in itself to possess an adequate amount of the four requisites to sustain life or even to possess abundant material wealth. Because for the search for and the acquisition of wealth is part of the stage of development virtuous conduct, sila. The acquisition of wealth is means for reaching a higher goal. It is a foundation for developing the mind and cultivating wisdom, panya, in order to lead a wholesome life and to experience more refined forms of sukha, happiness. People differ in disposition and aptitude. Some people are content with the minimum degree of material wealth required to sustain life and focus primarily on developing higher spiritual qualities. Other people, however, are not yet prepared for these higher stages or are more dependent on material things, which is acceptable if they are not involved in harming others. Moreover, but nevertheless, there are some people whose disposition and aptitude is to assist others by sharing material wealth. Their wealth is thus of benefit to others. The meaning of the term Samma Jiva, right livelihood, is not restricted to the application of one's labor for producing goods, for acquiring the requisites of life through righteous means. This term also includes the fulfillment of personal responsibilities, a proper conduct or a way of life which makes a person worthy of receiving these requisites. Take the example, the upholding by the monks or the bhikkhus of the qualities of a monk, samana dhamma, and the consequent receiving of the four requisites offered by the lay community is Samma Jiva, right livelihood for the bhikkhus. Similarly, children behaving well and acting in a way worthy of care bestowed on them by their parents can be considered Sama jiva of a child, right? Livelihood of a child. Uh, Furthermore, in determining the value of labor, instead of focusing merely on the production of goods for gratifying people's needs and desires, as it may be ambiguous whether these needs are governed by greed or are connected to true requirements for life. The way of the Dhamma focuses on the fruits of labor that either supports a person's life and the well-being of society or else acts as in a detrimental way, either or, supports or acts in a detrimental way, either positive effects or negative effects. From what has been said so far, there are two related matters for consideration. First, in the Buddhist teaching, the relationship between a person's profession, quote unquote work, and a person's material income is twofold. For the ordinary mundane person, the exertion of labor is directly related to their profession. One works in order to receive some monetary or material gain to support one's life. For monks and renunciants, the exertion of labor is independent of employment in the general sense. The intention, cetana, of the renunciant is to put forth virya, effort to work. Effort or to work is not to receive some material gain, but rather to advance in the Dhamma or to uphold the Dhamma. Remember what the Dhamma means. Satanat Dhamma is the eternal law written. If a bhikkhu, a monk, diverts his effort from this proper responsibility in order to specifically seek out the four requisites, this is considered miccha ajiva. Likewise, if he acts in order to profit materially by soliciting the requisites in a way that runs counter to the wise of the donor, this is considered impure livelihood. That's what's going on these days. Apart from obvious examples of miccha ajiva, wrong livelihood, of deception, flattery, hinting, intimidation, pursuing gain with gain, making a living by serving others, say by running errands, engaging in various arts like choosing auspicious occasions, using black magic, white magic, healing people, soothsaying, making prophecies, practicing medicines, are also classified as miccha ajiva for bhikkhus. If a bhikkhu, a monk who is not ill, asks for food, fine food, hard food, or even boiled rice, for him and eats it, the behavior is faulty as regards to the vocation of the monk. To make the Dharma, the eternal law, into some form of commodity is wrong according to the renunciant's code of ethics. Giving a Dhamma talk with the thought that the listeners may be pleased and one may thus receive some form of reward is an impure Dhamma talk. Even an act of giving that resembles a payment or recompense is inappropriate, as is evident in the following occasion involving Gautama Buddha. At one time, Gautama Buddha was walking for alms and stopped at the edge of the field belonging to a Hindu Brahmin. The Hindu Brahmin asked, "I plow and sow, and having plowed and sow, I eat." Gautama Buddha replied, "I too, Hindu Brahmin, plow and sow, and having plowed and sow, I eat." The Hindu Brahmin was perplexed, and there followed a series of questions and answers spoken in verse. Gautama Buddha concluded by saying that his plowing and sowing bears the fruit of immortality, amanta, the deathless. The Hindu Brahmin applauded. This replied with sattva, faith, offered some food to Gautama Buddha. Gautama Buddha refused this food, saying it would be inappropriate to eat this food acquired through chanting verses. A pure and righteous acquisition of the four requisites, or in Laotian we call it Bachai Si, for bhikkhus or monks occurs when lay people recognize the value of the law of Dhamma and see the necessity of assisting these individuals whose duty is to uphold the law of Dhamma. The lay people are made aware of the monks' requirements for the food when the monks walk in a composed manner for alms round. The laity then offer food from their own initiative. The effect of this generosity, dana, is that the donors purify, brighten, and alleviate their minds by reflecting on how they have performed virtuous deeds of supporting these individuals who practice the law of Dhamma, and by practicing themselves is upholding the Dhamma. In short, in summary, in brief, they make merit or receive blessing. In Laotian, Tambun. The bhikkhus, the monks who receive these offerings, are guided by the principles of conduct dealing with the four requisites, which states that a monk should be contented with little and no moderation in regard for the requisites. This is contrast to the other responsibility of a monk, for example, teaching and advising, which should be performed as much as possible with the sole aim of benefiting those who receive the teaching. The principle of eating just enough to sustain the body while at the same time performing as much work as possible is comparable for a renunciant, for whom the exertion of effort, vidya, is completely separate from material gains of his or her livelihood. A monk cannot demand special rights or privileges by appealing to the amount of work he performed. When a renunciant practices according to this principle, the external social system does not dictate their lives. Emphasis on do not dictate their lives. These principles mentioned above have the significant objective by creating a lifestyle that's free from all external social systems, or create an independent community whose duty is to realize and uphold the truth, satcha, whose members wish for the complete spiritual purification, vimutti, of all human beings. The second is an honest examination reveals that much of human labor in the area of economic production, both in terms of material goods and the service industry, does not truly benefit human life and society. Apart from obvious destructive activity like producing weapons or narcotics, there are businesses that destroy the natural environment, demean human dignity, or demand the quality of a person's minds, while others are dedicated solely to preventing and solving the consequences of harmful actions. In large, these kinds of labor are a waste of effort and end up being destructive. Growth in many of these industries requires people to devote a great deal of energy and capital in order to prevent and solve the destructive effects resulting from the production itself. In contrast, labor that truly benefits human beings and society does not necessarily need to be part of the ordinary market economy, as can be seen in the exemplary life in the harmony with the Dhamma, the law, which promotes human virtue and wisdom. So the Dhamma basically promotes sila and panya. From the perspective of the output or yield, personal virtue occasionally more valuable than the fruits of physical labor. Take the example. A monk or a bhikkhu may be meditating in the forest without making any explicit effort to protect the forest. But the forest rangers may say that he is more effective in preserving the forest than all the other projects or efforts combined. In terms of true well-being and happiness of human beings, looking only at the value of production and consummation is not enough. It is necessary to also look at the value of not producing and not consuming. From the perspective of the Dhamma, a person who does not produce anything within the sphere of the market economy, yet consumes the world's resources in a prudent fashion, has a healthy relationship with the natural environment. It is better than a person who produces things that are destructive and consume the world's resources in a wasteful manner. It appears, however, that the most economic ideologies praise the latter person who produces and consumes much, who is destructive, more than the former person who produces and consumes little, who is less destructive. One should ask whether it is fair assessment to refer only to the acts of production without considering the amount of waste resulting from consumption, or without reflecting on how production truly benefits human beings. The field of economics is often interested in statistics, numbers, and monetary growth. Although economics is considered a branch of science, many economic theories and ideologies are limited, inadequate, and incomplete when it comes to solving the economic problems of human beings, who exists above any particular branch of abstract scientific knowledge. Indeed, admitting that there are mere numerical calculations and tallies cannot suffice in solving human problems, would act for the benefit and integrity of the field of economics. As mentioned above, the Buddhist teachings are not really interested in how much wealth a person possesses, and the value of the person is not determined by how much money he or she has. Material wealth is viewed as simply as a stepping stone to the higher goal, rather than the goal in itself. And the value of money is linked to the practice for reducing the higher goal. The focus in Buddhism is the two stages, the methods by which wealth is acquired, and the way that acquired wealth is subsequently used. Buddhism does not emphasize possessing wealth, but rather emphasizes the search for and the spending of wealth, or the sharing of wealth. To merely accumulate money for no particular purpose is considered a reprehensible, as acquiring money in immoral ways or spending money in harmful ways. There are thus three basic vices in regard to material wealth: unrighteous acquisition of wealth, possession of wealth without using it for one's true advantage, and the spending of wealth in harmful ways. Furthermore, although a person may acquire wealth righteously and spend money in beneficial ways, this behavior does not yet count as complete in regard to the proper relationship to material wealth. This is because the Buddhist teaching emphasizes panya, wisdom, and the quality of one's mind. A person's relationship towards the material wealth must include liberating wisdom, Nitsarana panya. Nitsarana panya, liberating by wisdom. This liberation or liberating wisdom implies that one truly understands the value, the benefits, and the limitation of wealth. One recognizes how wealth has the potential to be either helpful or harmful. Rather than to be enslaved by wealth, one should be the master of wealth by recognizing that wealth should serve people and acts as the means for developing goodness, reducing dukkha, suffering, increasing true happiness. Wealth should not be the cause for adding to personal distress, corrupting people's minds, damaging human dignity, or creating divisions amongst people. Gautama Buddha described 10 different kinds of lay people. those who enjoy sensual pleasures, the 10th of which he described as supreme. Among the characteristics of these most excellent people, one can see by the way of dealing with money in accords with the Dhamma, which can be summarized as follows. The first one, acquisition, to seek wealth in the righteous way, without abusing or harming others. The second, expenditure. This stage also includes both saving money and living in moderation, to provide for one's happiness along with the happiness of those whom is responsible, to be charitable, to share one's wealth with others, to use one's wealth for materialist purposes, including for promulgating and promoting the Dhamma, liberating panya, to be heedless with one's wealth, to apply wisdom when spending money, to know the advantages and dangers of wealth, to not be enslaved by money, to rely on money in order to find opportunities for spiritual development. Gautama Buddha gave the following teachings to people's relations to wealth. Monks, there are 3 kinds of persons found existing in the world. What are the 3 kinds of persons? The blind, the one eye, and the 2 eye. And how is the blind person? Here, some person does not possess the eye that helps to acquire unacquired wealth or make acquired wealth increase. He does not possess the eye that helps distinguish between skillful and unskillful things, between harmful and harmless things, between base and refined things, between things comparable to either bright or dark objects. This person is called blind. And how is this one-eyed person? Here, some person possess the eye that helps to acquire unacquired wealth or to make acquired wealth increase, but he does not possess the eye that helps to distinguish between skillful and unskillful things, between harmful and harmful things, between base and refined things, between things comparable to either bright or dark objects. This person is called one-eyed. And how is the person two-eyed? Here, some person possess the eye that helps to acquire unacquired wealth, to make acquired wealth increase. He also possesses the eye that helps to distinguish between skillful and unskillful things, between harmful and harmless things, between base and refined things, between things comparable to either bright or dark objects. This person is called two-eyed. The blind man, with eyes impaired, experiences twofold misfortune. He possesses no such wealth, nor does he perform good deeds. Another, who is called one-eye, searches merely for wealth through righteous and unrighteous means, even through theft, trickery, and deceit. He takes pleasure in sensuality, clever at accumulating wealth. But departing, here the one-eye experiences torment in hell. Best of all persons called the two-eye. He distributes his hard-earned wealth, rightly won, is generous, with noble intent, unwavering. He reaches the favorable destination, free from sorrow. One should steer clear from the blind and the one eye, and associate only with the noble, two-eyed person. Gautama Buddha criticized the hoarding of material wealth without being used for any beneficial purposes. For instance, on one occasion, King Patenadi of Kosala visited Gautama Buddha. Gautama Buddha asked why the king was out during the day. The king told Gautama Buddha that the householder, who was a millionaire, had recently died in the capital city. Because this man had no other heir, the king had gone to collect his treasure and transport it back to his palace. The king went on to say that amongst these treasures there were 8 million gold coins, not to mention the amount of silver. But yet this man was alive. He ate only grits with sour grain, wore a 3-piece rough garment, and went about in a dilapidated little cart with a leaf awning. Gautama Buddha replied, "So it is, great king. When an inferior man gains abundant wealth, does not make happy himself and pleased, nor does he make his mother and his father, his wife and his children, his servants and his workers and employees, his friends and his colleagues happy and pleased, nor does he establish an offering for the ascetics and the Brahmins, one bearing noble fruit, generating virtuous states of mind, resulting in happiness and conducive to the heavenly realms. Because his wealth is not being used properly, kings confiscate it, or thieves steal it, or the fire consumes it, or water carries it away, or the displeasing airs take it. Such being the case, that wealth not being used properly goes to waste, not to utilization. This is similar to the lotus pond in place uninhabited by human beings. Although it has clear, cool, fresh, and clean water with good fords, delightful, but no people would take that water or drink it or bathe in it or use it for any purpose. And when the superior man gains abundant wealth, he makes himself happy and pleased. He makes his mother and his father, his wife, his children, his servants, workers, and employees, his friends and his colleagues happy and pleased. He established an offering for the ascetics and Brahmins, one bearing noble fruit, generating virtuous state of mind, resulting in happiness conducive to heaven. Because his wealth is being used properly, kings do not confiscate it, thieves cannot steal it, fire does not consume it, water does not carry it away, and unloved heirs cannot take it. But such being the case, that wealth being used properly goes to utilization, not to waste. This is similar to a lotus pond in a place not far from the village or a town, with clear, cool, fresh, and clean water, with good fords, delightful, and people would take that water and drink it, bathe in it, and use it for their purposes. As cool water in the desolate place is forsaken without being drunk, so when a scoundrel acquires wealth, he neither enjoys it nor shares it. But when the wise man obtains wealth, he utilizes it and does his duty, having supported his kin, free from blame. That noble man goes to the heavenly state. And a similar occasion, so it is, great king, few people, those people in the world who, when they obtain great wealth, do not become intoxicated and negligent, captivated by sensual pleasures, mistreated being other beings, far more numerous than those people in the world who, when they obtain great wealth, become intoxicated and negligent, captivated by sensual pleasures, mistreated other beings. A person who accumulates wealth but does not utilize it or share it is compared to a mahaka bird. Sits at the fig tree full of ripe fruit, saying, "My hum, my hum." From the Pali meaning, this means mine, mine. So the bird sitting at the tree just saying, "My hum, my hum." And the fig tree is full of ripe fruit. When the flock of other birds come to peck at the fruit and fly off, the mayaka bird remains bubbling away. "My hum, mine, mine." There are many stories in the Dipitaka criticizing stingy people who keep money to themselves and do not use it to help others. These stories often recount a change of mind for wealthy misery merchants. They provide insightful teachings on the Buddha's view on proper ownership and the use of wealth. Thus, this is the end of chapter 17.8. At the bottom or at the top of 1630, page 1630, Buddha Dhamma.